Hey guys. So a few days ago I watched Predator Badlands and I was super excited about it because I had been seeing clips on YouTube for months now. Like, I mean, they were completely flooding the zone with YouTube clips. And when it came out, I told myself, I'm definitely going to see this movie. I didn't even realize that I was a massive both Alien and Predator fan until I really sat down and thought about it. And I think I've seen almost every movie from both of those franchises. I don't think I've seen the most recent Predator TV series. I think it's called like Killer of Killers or Hunters of Hunters or something along the lines. But everything else, just by happenstance over the years, I have kind of consumed by osmosis. I love horror and I love science fiction and I love fantasy, and the Alien series and the Predator series and the AVP series by extension kind of like merges all those things together. And so I definitely wanted to see Predator Badlands, if for nothing else because I liked Prey, and I'm pretty sure it was the same director or the same team from Prey that did this. I still had my complaints about Prey, but I think it was a step in the right direction for those types of movies. And guys, if you haven't seen Predator Badlands, go see it, like right now. It is that good. I know some people have complained about it being like Disneyfied, and don't get me wrong, I actually was kind of worried that they were going to have like a Porg or Ewok situation where they introduce one of like the smaller animals, but it's not at all. I mean, like, I was convinced this movie was R-rated after seeing it, but it was, when I looked it up, it was PG-13, and I think they used the PG-13 rating as well as they could. It does not feel like they dumbed this movie down for the sake of appealing to kids. It doesn't feel like they needed to tell some type of sanitized story for Disney or for younger audiences. I felt like this was a Predator movie made by Predator fans, and because of that, there's a lot of passion and love given into it. But again, me having seen so many Predator movies and knowing so much about the Yautja, I came away really amazed by it. I mean, if for nothing else, the sound design being freaking amazing. But one of the things that really surprised me about the movie itself was its commentary on the main character's personality and his identity, and how it intersects with manhood and femininity and just how to think about yourself. I wasn't expecting that from a Predator movie. I mean, really, I don't know what I was expecting except laser swords and violence, and we got plenty of that, don't worry about it. But there was this really cool dissection of Dek as a character and his fitting into his tribe. So often, especially in like the last videos, I have talked about gender and masculinity and then femininity too, and how to think about them within storytelling. And one of the things that I really try to harp on is this idea that while some stories can 100% make gender studies or gender dissection part of its narrative and looking at it directly and making you aware that it's looking at it, I think some of the best stories are on the flip side, where there is no direct overt look at what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. It simply shows men and women being, and then we of the audience get to decide that for ourselves. And this is one of those movies. There is not a single instance in the movie or I think there's any direct consideration given to what it means to be a man, what it means to be a male, or what it means to be a woman, or what it means to be human. It's all about our, and this is going to sound cliche, I guess, but just the humanity inside of us, and then that can be understood to extrapolate out to those things that we might care about from like a gender perspective. And don't get me wrong, there are tons of under the hood gendered messages within this movie, and one of them is this idea that Dek is the alpha male. If people don't know the story of Predator Badlands, and you don't mind being spoiled, one of the big things about the movie is that the main character Dek is considered the runt of his family, his clan. His father is the leader of the clan, and his brother is a great warrior within the same clan. And Dek's issue, his conflict, is that he wants to prove himself to his father, to the rest of his people. And the Yautja, the group of aliens that he's a part of, which are the Predators, they do that by killing prey. And at the literal very beginning of the movie, this is one of those clips that they posted online, Dek's father essentially wants to cut his dead weight. And he says, "You're a runt, you're the smallest, you're the weakest, and we have to purge you from the clan."
Gulang.
And Deck ends up escaping from his father, who wants to kill him, and basically goes on this mission to prove his identity, to prove his worth to his father, about why he should be a part of his clan. And this, to me, is an amazing way of framing this idea about masculinity, especially modern concerns about masculinity, without ever directly interacting with it. Because, like, you know, come on. It's very obviously supposed to be the idea of the powerful, resource-gathering, protector, hunter man who has to demonstrate his masculinity to be accepted by the other men around him, right? And it's all men, you know, like anytime that Deck ever talks about the people that he's trying to impress, it's his father, it's his brother, who he has a very close relationship with. And he has to consider across his journey what it means to be the type of person that these men expect him to be. And the reason that I'm confident in saying this is that the other character, Thea, she is the android played by Elle Fanning, who has half a body for half the movie, and it's really, really cool. She kind of has to go on this same experience of understanding her identity in relation to her sister. She also plays another character named Tessa, and during the course of the movie she realizes that Tessa, who is another android just like Thea, is basically her family, and they can look out for each other. And it's this understanding of valuing who your family is that you were given, and then who your family is that you have found. And I don't really want to spoil tons of the movie, but for huge parts of it, Deck is super preoccupied with this idea that he's not supposed to accept help, that he has to do these things alone, that he has to venture off and complete his trials by his own power, and then return with the corpse or the head of his prey, which is, you know, typical overcompensation by a dude who's insecure, is like the biggest, most powerful, unkillable monster that there is, and he's supposed to achieve all these things on his own. And throughout the course of the movie, one thing that I thought was super cool is that Thea tells Deck that on Earth, because she specialized in kind of like animals, that there is the alpha male of the wolf predators. And Deck kind of looks at her and says, you know, oh, he's the leader. And she goes, yeah. And he goes, well, he's the leader because he's the strongest, because he kills the most. And Thea tells him, no, that's not the reason. The alpha male is the leader because he protects the pack. He ensures the pack's survival, and that's what a true alpha is. And this allows Deck, through the climax of the movie, to come to the realization that proving himself to his father is not going to give him purpose and is not going to secure his identity. You know, he embarked on this whole journey, and he put himself in this horrible, you know, situation on this deadly planet because he wanted somebody else to see him for who he was. He wanted to be accepted by the men of his clan, by the warriors of his clan who he aspired for, because he had always thought that he was on the outside of them. But it was through having his mentality, but it was by having his mentality as a hunter reframed as him being a true predator, being a true alpha, as protecting those he had chosen as his own family, that helped him come to grips with the idea of being okay with the helping him and being on his journey, being okay with the little alien coming to effectively save him at points. And I laugh because so often alpha male ideology is used in the exact opposite way, where it takes men away from being able to interact with the world healthily. Because alpha male ideology, at least in the modern day context, is almost exclusively used by like internet influencer, men's activist types who scam other weak dudes by running like $2,000 a day camps and trying to teach them like how to be alphas. And there's this ideology, you know, that you have to stand at the head of your group and you make the decisions and others follow, and you bear the brunt of the consequences and the decisions. And if you guys know the channel, Pop Culture Detective did an amazing, like, I think like 40-minute long video on the myth of the alpha male. And this is kind of like self-defeating prophecy, where a guy will purposefully subject himself to kind of like emotional isolation to be on this social pedestal, right? to be above and separate from the people underneath him, because the idea is like, you know, they can deal with the problems that come with everyday issues. You know, that's their luxury that they get to have. But I, as the alpha male, I am misunderstood purposefully because I'm separate. I'm some different being. I'm the resource gatherer. I'm the one who handles the true problems and the issues. And I don't allow people to see my weaknesses, because if I were to fall, you know, the entire social group would fall, and their lives are dependent upon me. And the reason I call it the alpha male myth is because, one, no man is an island. No man can survive singularly being at the pinnacle of any social circle. Everything is collaborative. Humans are social creatures. And secondly, alpha males don't really even exist in real life. There's tons of studies that go into the fact that what we consider to be alphas, they're just like the father wolf in a group of like a female wolf and like babies. You know, like he's literally just like the oldest wolf. He's the dad of all the younger ones. And they'll have like a litter of what, like 4 to 6 wolves, but they're all like 4 to 5 years younger than the dad. And so he just becomes the alpha. He becomes the leader. And it's not because he's like physically bigger, you know, like people talk about like silverback gorillas, and you know, you have like silverback energy, because the idea is supposed to be biologically, physically, you're just dominant. They're supposed to be beta men and alpha men. And I think that's really dangerous for dudes, because it kind of calls upon this idea that you have to be physically fit or strong or daring or these other qualities that some men aren't born with, but that doesn't make them any less masculine. There's tons of ways to be masculine outside of what someone might think of, like the big tough alpha male dude who, you know, goes around intimidating people.
He can be a very nice guy, or he can be a very nasty guy. That is actually irrelevant. If he's at the top, he's the alpha male. And I think people overestimate male dominance, mainly because they think purely in physical terms, but primate societies are political systems, and physical power is only one part of the whole equation.
And all of this is to say, this is the first time I think I've seen the alpha male ideology used so simply for the good of a character. Because never in the movie was the idea of being an alpha male tied to literally being better than others. Thea never argued for Deck to be an alpha male because she thought that he was some vastly superior being. She argued that he was the alpha because he was able to take care of her, and that she could support him in the same way. And of course, like in the movie, without spoiling things, Deck gets humbled over and over again by realizing that he's not even the most dangerous predator within his group. And because of that, I do think Deck is like one of the few actual alpha males presented in fiction that isn't really stupid or cringe or dangerous for young men. He learns how to simply interact with a woman. You know, like a ton of, not to go on a tangent, a ton of alpha male content is based around the ability to make like femininity submit to your will, right? So you don't take no for an answer. You present yourself in such a way that women kind of like want to be with you. And if they don't want to be with you, you get them to want to be with you.
Sitting in front of us was this group of cute chicks eating popcorn. Dutch started throwing milk duds at them.
What? Why would he do that?
Cause it's an alpha move, man. Babes love when you treat them like crap.
And if even after that they don't want to, there must be something wrong with them. And to have Deck, who, you know, maybe for predator standards is a weakling, but for any other standard is like, I think like a 6.5 foot super ripped dangerous guy, to have him be friends with a woman, to just have him never once look at her romantically, because I don't even think he's preoccupied with that, but just to have the relationship between a male and a female character, and they're looked at as companions and survivors together, and not have to even question about their romance, I think is really, really cool. And of course, like I said, Thea deals with her own struggles with understanding that she's a robot made for a purpose, and that her sister, who's the only real family that she had, has that same purpose, but it's her choosing to have her own purpose, to not let the company decide who she wants to be. It's a counteracting journey to Deck's, right? Except I think Deck is able to revel in the close relationship that he had with his brother, and it's because of the loss of the relationship that Thea has with her sister that she's able to confide in Deck. And to culminate the whole movie, of course, at the very end, they keep talking about Deck of the Yautja. and he says, no, I'm not yet, no, I'm not yet. And he returns to his father, and the whole point before is that he was looking for his father's approval. He was yearning to be a part of this group. It was about his identity, it's about who he was, Dek of the Yautja. And at the end of the movie, he tells his father, I have done my mission and I don't care about being a part of your group, right? He unshackled himself. Dek was not beholden to the opinions or the whims of these other men. He had created his own found family. The hierarchy within his group allowed him to be comfortable with being supported, with not needing to kind of like bend over backwards for the approval of these other people. And that's really cool, because I think that's how we should all live. We should find our own community. We should find our own wolf pack, and we should be able to understand our place within it and the strengths and benefits and weaknesses and deficits that each person brings. And I am so excited if there is a sequel, because the end teases the sequel, insofar as that it's just going to be another freaking awesome, amazing like sci-fi movie. But at the very end, Dek talks about his mother coming into play, and it's only then that you realize how much of this story for Dek was covertly centered on masculinity. It was about a boy fighting for the approval of his father, fighting for the approval of his masculine community. There was no women that the Yautja, that Dek's side, had to deal with. And now at the very end, there's this promise of like, oh yeah, there's in the Yautja culture all this ideology around how the men are supposed to act, but we haven't even touched upon how a young man might interact with his mother in the same sense of like searching for identity. And I just think that's really cool. And aside from all that, I know you probably come here for my over analytical dissections of gender studies, but just from a storytelling perspective as well, super cool story. Again, sound design was awesome. It's circular, so many cool interactions, so much awesome character dialogue. It was this just amazing adventure on this foreign planet that was both beautiful and disturbing and ugly and everything in between. So I would really recommend you guys go out and watch Predator Badlands if you can, because I think that not only is it a fantastically fun time, I think the Disneyfication that people are talking about is simply the character realizing his own identity separate from the violent, very proto-masculine culture that he was brought up in, to create his own sense of self and his own way of living life. And to me, that's really freaking awesome. So anyway, thanks for watching all the way to the end. Let me know what you want me to talk about next. Like, comment, subscribe, bounce on it, twirl around, and I'll see you all next time.